Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença and today we're going to talk about survey form of freeCodeCamp. This is the first project we're going to do that it's for the certification in freeCodeCamp, okay? So basically we're going to do a website just like this, alright? So we're going to have in here this H1 freeCodeCamp. We don't have margin in here. We can scroll down and we have other things to select. So here we have an input type text. We have a drop down, we have here radio, we have another drop down, we have a checkbox and a text area with a submit button, okay? I highly recommend you that you just do this project once you already saw the other videos where we explain how can you learn every little thing in here, because they have some other projects to build before you do here the certification project, okay? So without further ado, let's start. So let's start now. Here, basically, what are we gonna do? This is the link where you can see the page we're gonna build, okay? And now we're gonna start creating the HTML file and the CSS working in here, okay? And we're gonna look the page in this part, all right? Here we have some things that we have to do. They kind of explain the things that we have to do. And in the end, we run the test and check if we pass all the tests. All right, so let's start. Basically, remember, we have to start with the doc type HTML because we want to say that this is an HTML file for the browser, so for Firefox, Mozilla, and those things. Then we need the HTML tag, and we're going to write things, HTML tag, we're going to write things inside, and you can get the language in here saying that it's English, okay? Remember that we always have a title and a head, the head and the body for our project, okay? The head is everything that is not visual and the body is everything is visual. So in the head, we're gonna create some links with other files. So first, I'm gonna give a title. On the title, I'm gonna say survey form. And basically in this title, it's gonna be the title of the tab. So for example, in here, it's not gonna display, okay? But if we were working with a regular project, it will display in the tab of the page. Then, we're gonna create the link with our styles.css. Okay, so link rel equals to style sheet, and we're here href equals to styles.css. Okay, now we can start working with our body. So we know that our page, we should have a page title in an H1 element with ID title. So here basically we're gonna have this title and this second title in here, okay? That will be ID description. So let's start planning this, okay? So here it will be an H1 and I'm gonna give an ID title, and in this H1 we're gonna display this message: freeCodeCamp survey form, freeCodeCamp survey form. And if I close the H1, we can see this in here. And we also gonna have a paragraph with ID equals to description. And inside of the description, we're gonna have this: thank you for taking the time, blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna display this in here, okay? And this is what we're seeing so far. All right, so far so good, okay? Then we're gonna have a form element, because now we're gonna create this form in here where we're gonna contain the name, email, age, and all of these questions. And it's important to make this form with an ID survey form, because then we can work styling some things. So here, form ID equals to survey form, okay? And I'm gonna close here the form tag. Before we move on, actually, I'm gonna go a little bit further in here and then I start doing some changes with the CSS, okay? Actually, let's start doing this right now. So here in the CSS, I'm gonna use the body tag and I wanna say that the color will be white, okay? So all the color here of the text will be white. But before we change this, what I want us to do is the following. Basically, if you take a look, we have a image as a background here, right? So this is the link for the image, okay? And we're gonna use here the background image property. So background image here, I'm gonna put, URL, and I'm gonna put this link. okay? And we have this in here. With the background image, we can give some styling here. So one thing that I later can fix is the following. So basically in here, we can set if we want to repeat and the background size, okay? So here we're gonna use these two properties that we saw previously, and it will help us creating here the image. So what I want to do, the background repeat here, I want to no repeat, and here I want to cover, okay? So let's see what happens if I put this in here. So now we can kind of see everything we have, okay? That's pretty much the project we have so far in our hands. Okay, besides that, I want to use here color white. So all the text we're gonna work in here will be white, okay? And then I think this is pretty much what we're gonna do. But right now I'm gonna just comment out because I wanted to show you how it's gonna be. Right now I'm gonna comment out a little bit, okay? Actually, no. Let's start working here with those things. One thing that we can take a look in here is that we have kind of a purple color in here, right? So basically we're gonna work with this linear gradient that is gonna give this idea of purple. So here we're gonna have a background. I'm gonna give here background. And if you remember from the previous code, we have linear gradient. Let me remove the preview. Actually, let me remove in here. We basically have linear gradient. Okay, we can set the direction. I will put in here 90 degrees, for example, and we're gonna use two colors. If you use here the inspect, we can see what are the colors that they are using. If we scroll down in here, we see that they are using this gradient, this linear gradient in here, okay? Background image, we're gonna copy this property basically. Okay, instead of doing the things that we're doing, do you see here? It has the same properties. The good thing about this one, it's because it kind of gives all the things we have we're gonna use. So let me remove the background image. I'm gonna let this way. Here, the freeCodeCamp thing. Let me remove here the background. All right. So do you see? It looks pretty similar to what we have, okay? If you use the inspector, we can always get the properties we have in there. It's not the best thing to do. They don't want us to copy and paste, but in this case, I'm just grabbing because we want to make the same color as we have in here, okay? And the position will be center. All right, so it's pretty much what we have in there. Now I'm gonna remove this developer tools because I want us to play around together. Then what are we gonna do? We're gonna set the width here 100 VW, and we're gonna set the height 100 VH. Okay, so we have all of this size in here. All right, and this is pretty much what we have. I also want to have in here, I want to remove this scroll bar in the horizontal alignment, so I want to do margin 0. Okay, that's it. So now let's work with our form, okay? Because if you take a look in here, we have this this purple div. So we're gonna work with this purple div right now. So what am I gonna do? First, before we move on in here, we need to add the meta class, all right, to make it responsive. So I'm gonna add this meta class in here. Okay, here in the head. And I'm also gonna add the meta char set equals to UTF-8 because this is something that they kind of require us to have. All right, now let's work with the survey form. So for the survey form, we're gonna use in here survey form, okay. Let me just double check. Survey form, survey form. What we want to have in here. So basically, we're going to create this div with this color. So to grab this color, I'm going to use just one more time in here to check what is the color that they are using in this case. And if we take a look, let's see. They are using this color in here. All right. No, they are using this color in here. Sorry. So we're going to copy and we're going to paste in here. Background color, we're gonna use this color in here. I'm gonna give here a width of 80% and a height. I'm not gonna set the height right now, but I will display a high inside of the form so we can see what's going on. H2 saying high, for example. Okay, and we can see this div in here. All right, we're gonna write things here inside this div. We can set the margin 0 auto, for example, and it should put everything in the middle, okay? And we're gonna do the same for the H1 and the paragraph. We're gonna say margin 0 auto, okay? Actually, margin 10 pixels auto. And if I use here display block as well, 10 pixels auto. Let's see. This part we can work later, there's no problem. But basically here the div is in the middle, okay, the survey form. We can also work rounding a little bit, so here we can have a border, radius. This we can do in the future of 10 pixels. I'm not sure, and it will be a little bit more rounded, okay? This is pretty much what we're gonna do right now. Then we can put, if you take a look at this paragraph, it's in italic. So basically here in this paragraph, we can use the description. If I use here description, for example, I can use text align center. Okay, so now it's in the center. And we can say that the font style, it's italic. So italic, for example. And now it's italic, the way that we're seeing. We can also use here the ID title. Okay, and we can say that text align its center. Okay, and now the text is in the center. We can give a margin top of 10 pixels. Actually, I think I'm gonna increase here for 30 pixels. Okay, and the margin bottom here, the margin top will be 0. Margin top here will be 0. Okay, and here the margin bottom will be 0 as well. All right, so they're a little bit near. It's 5 pixels, for example. All right, we can also get here what is the font family they are using, right? So if we take a look here, this is the font family they are getting. So this Poppins sans serif, and we're gonna use here in our body. I wanna make all of this look pretty similar to what we have. Okay, so we're changing here freeCodeCamp survey form, and I believe here the H1 probably the font style, it's like for 400, let's see, font weight. Okay, and we can see here that it looks a little bit, it's thin, it's not so, yes, great. All right, so this is pretty much what we have. I think it's too thin right now, or it was good. So things are looking pretty similar. Now let's work with the form in here. So now we're gonna work creating here, I'm gonna remove the style for now, and we're gonna work creating here the label with the input, okay? So I'm gonna have a here label, and I'm gonna have a input type equals to text, okay? And I'm close here the label, and let's see. The first message we have is name. So if I put here name, now it's this way. Let me see if I change here the input. If I put the input right in here, okay, didn't change much, but we can work with, there's no problem. And then we're gonna have for email age, so we're gonna have the same in here, and we can take a look a little bit with what we have. So basically here we're gonna have our required for name. So here we're gonna have an ID type text, ID equals to name, name equals to name as well. Okay, and here we want this to be required. Great. Then we're gonna have the same for the email. All right, so here we're gonna have another one for email. Okay, and here the type will be email, and the ID and the name will be email. Okay, remember that the ID, the name, it's for the property when we're sending the data, okay? The form, we need an action. I forgot about this. Here the action, I will leave it empty, okay, because we don't have right now somewhere to send. The email is required. Then we have to check if it's the validator, great. Inside the form, we're gonna enter a number. So here we're gonna have the age here, we can add a number, okay? Something that is important here for the name, I want a placeholder. So here, I'm gonna add a placeholder here. If you don't remember, placeholder, we can send a message to the user, so the user know what he has to enter. So here we're gonna say enter your name. Okay, and like you can see here, we can see enter your name. For the email, we have enter your email. For the email, we have here placeholder equals to enter your email. The next one will be for the age. Okay, so here we're gonna have age, and it can be optional. For this, we're gonna remove the required, and the type now will be number. Okay, we're gonna accept number. We're gonna have a min of 1 and a max of 120. So we're not gonna let anyone just sign up here. For example, if I put minus, actually they are letting us, but they shouldn't. And here we can enter a number. Okay, it allows from 0 up to more. And here we have the word age. age. The name and the ID I'm gonna change to age. Okay? This is pretty much what we have right now. And then we can work with the other one. So right now, let's start fixing the input. Okay? So here, I'm gonna create an element called input and label. First input, and I wanna set a width of 300 pixels, for example, let's see. Okay. I want the label to contain the width of 100% of what we have here in the form. Okay, it's not changing much. And let me see here. We want some margin, right? So we want a margin of 10 pixels and 10 pixels, for example. Let's play around. Here I want a height, and this height I'm gonna put 30 pixels, for example, to expand a little bit. And we have to find a way of putting them in different lines, okay? So how can we do this? So I was playing around a little bit, and I think the best option is not to have them in the same place. So we're gonna put the label before the input, okay? So I'm gonna change all of this. I'm gonna close the label tag before the input, all right. Here the same. And what are we gonna do? We're gonna put all of this label input inside of a div, okay? And we're gonna play around with this div. So here we're gonna create a div, class equals to form div, for example, okay? And we're gonna have this div for every label input we have, okay? And here the same. Let's close the divs in here, div. And you see, it kind of automatically fixed here, putting everything in each part, right? In each row. So now let's work with this form div. So I'm gonna remove this label here. And now I'm gonna use this form div, for example. And what I wanna do, I wanna set a margin of 10 pixels, 0, 10 pixels, and 0, let's see. So basically we're gonna work with this margin here, okay, we're working in here. We can set the label to a width that will be like 100% in here. Okay, for example, if I put, I don't know, 300 pixels. I wanna put them in different places. So if I try to use here display block, for example, they are this way, okay. Now I wanna split them into different pieces. So the label here, let me change the width to 80%. Okay, and now it's already going to the next line. And the label, I want to use here width of 100%. Let's see. And nothing changes, but it's okay. We're going to continue working. So I was playing around a little bit in here and I had some ideas. Okay, so basically I'm going to remove this from here. Let's see. No, we should have this block in here, but what I want us to do, I want to put everything in the center. Okay, so here in the survey form, I'm gonna have a display flex, okay, but we're gonna change the flex direction to a column. Okay, we're gonna put everything in a column, and we want to do